Hello, so we're often asked how many people are there sleeping rough on the streets of Manchester, and that's a really difficult thing to know because of course it's a difficult thing to count. But what does happen all across the country, street counts are organised, and these are organised by local charities working with local councils, and volunteers walk up and down the streets and count the number of people who are sleeping rough, and this gives us an indication of how many people are out. And these street counts have been going on for over 20 years, and in the 1980s the numbers were really high, perhaps in the 80s, and in 2010 we brought the numbers right down to 7. So on a single night only 7 people in 2010 were found sleeping out, and that was great. It was still 7 people too many, but the numbers had come right down. And then the numbers went up again, and in 2018 they'd risen to 123 people found on a single night. And this is a terrible situation that so many people are on the streets. The numbers fell slightly, and during COVID the emergency accommodation was provided to get everybody inside, and the numbers went down. But since then the numbers have started creeping up again, and just the recent street count found 49 people in Manchester sleeping rough, and the numbers are on the rise. So what we tend to think is that of the number of people found on a street count, you can probably double that number, because lots of people will make sure they're hidden away and they're not easily found. So we're talking about a lot of people. We're talking about over 100 people in Manchester, and more than that across Greater Manchester, who are sleeping on the streets. So it's far too many people, but we also know that those numbers can be brought right down, like they were in 2010 and like they were during the COVID emergency, and there's no reason for anyone to be sleeping on the street if we've got enough support and enough funding from the government to get everyone inside, and that's what we're aiming to do.
So in March we adapted our service so that we were running just an emergency service from the garden, supporting people into single room accommodation on government's advice so they could all self-isolate. We provided food like takeout meals, and we also sent it to all of the accommodation that we managed to put people into. We rang and text people every day. We also started a Connecting Through Activities programme, which saw us creating weekly activity packs, and we did 48 half-an-hour episodes over the lockdown period, which went out pretty much every day, just to keep people interactive and part of the bigger Booth Centre picture, feel like that family that we created. And then in July we reopened the COVID Secure Centre for activities, whilst maintaining some of our successful elements from the first lockdown.
So another question we're often asked is how many people are homeless in Manchester or in Greater Manchester? And that's another really difficult question to answer, and there are lots of different ways of measuring that. So there's the number of people who are rough sleeping, which is just the tip of the iceberg. We've got the number of people who are staying in hostels or temporary accommodation in bed and breakfast hotels. And then we've got the number of people who are threatened with homelessness, who are insecurely housed, who need rehousing. And that number at the moment in Greater Manchester stands at over 100,000 people who are on Greater Manchester housing registers, who are waiting to have decent accommodation provided for them. And that's about the same number of council houses that were lost under the Right to Buy scheme. So we know what housing deficit we've got in Manchester. We know that we need over 100,000 really affordable new homes to be built and provided in Manchester if we're really going to tackle homelessness. We know that we've got thousands of people in temporary accommodation, and that doesn't even include the number of people who are staying on friends' floors, who are sofa surfing, and who are in really insecure accommodation. So just remember the number of people on the streets, which maybe is hitting the 100 mark again at the moment, is just the tip of the iceberg, and homelessness affects so many more people than that.
Hi, my name's Sue, and my favourite food at the Booth Centre is virtually everything, but especially the crumble and custard. I mean, that is just delightful, and the Booth Centre are ace in that they often make extra portions, and sometimes I'm lucky enough to get one to take home, so I get 2 lots. I mean, some of the other people actually eat 2 lots in here, but I've not got that big a belly. It's hearty, it's healthy. There's always a vegetarian option, which is utterly fantastic. That doesn't happen in a lot of places. It contains your 3 to 5 a day, and it fills you up. There's a free breakfast, which sets you up for the day, and then when you've done your activities, there's a free dinner.
How does the Booth Centre get people off the streets? Well, first of all, we work in partnership with individuals to offer person-centred support. This is what people need to be able to rebuild their lives. We work with accommodation providers across the city, referring people into accommodation. We can support people with transport, we can support people with emergency items. We also work with private landlords, because ultimately that is what people need, is to be able to have a permanent home. So we work with private landlords. We can help people with their deposit, we can help people with their first month of rent, and then our resettlement work helps people to maintain their tenancy over a longer period, so that the cycle of homelessness ends for good.
So we're often asked, is it possible to end rough sleeping? And the answer is absolutely yes, it's possible. There's no reason for people to be sleeping on our streets. And we now know that categorically because of what happened during the COVID-19 lockdown. So the government ordered everyone in and gave money to local councils to make this happen. And we worked really closely with the council and with other partners in other charities to bring everyone inside. And it was hugely successful. People were brought in off the street. A lot of those people are people who've been out for many years and had often refused to go into shared night shelter type accommodation. But when they were offered a hotel room with proper support, then they came inside. And we've been able to keep most of those people off the streets, which is absolutely fantastic. So we now know absolutely that given the right support, the right financial assistance from central government, and given a concerted effort by the local council and all the charities working together, that we can end rough sleeping. And that's what needs to happen, and that's what we're aiming to do.
So there's lots of things that people can do to end homelessness. First of all, you can support local homelessness charities. These charities will be supporting individuals to get off the street, maybe supporting them with their health, supporting them into homes, providing activity, providing routine, providing stability. Secondly, you can support national charities who might be campaigning and lobbying for more permanent change. And also you can be aware of the issues. So particularly in Manchester, one of the leading causes of homelessness is no-fault evictions from private tenancies. This means that in Manchester, we really just need more affordable homes. So learn about your area, find out what the issues are, particularly in your area, and then talk to people, try and spread awareness, write to your MP, sign petitions, do what you can to make people aware of whatever it is that is making people homeless in your area, and then bring about the positive change that we all want to see.
Physical and mental health problems can be a cause and consequence of homelessness. It is important that people are supported with their health in order to rebuild their lives. In normal times, we are visiting health professionals such as dentists, nurses and chiropodists. However, at the moment, we are supporting people to phone, book and travel to appointments. We recently had a drop-in flu immunisation and will be having another one next month.
So some people ask us, what could the government be doing to end homelessness? And is it something that the government needs to be doing? And the answer to both of those things is yes. The government absolutely needs to be helping, and they could make a real difference to end homelessness. And we need that support from government to make it happen. And the things that they need to be doing are firstly to be building truly affordable housing, and that's social housing to rent, where people, if they're working on minimum wage or they're on benefits, can afford to pay the rent and have good quality accommodation. And in Greater Manchester alone, it's 100,000 houses that we need to be building to accommodate everyone who's on the waiting list. So the first thing is to be building more housing. The second thing is to be regulating the private rented sector so that people have longer tenancies. At the moment, the most common reason for people to become homeless is the end of assured short-hold tenancies, where private landlords ask people to leave through no fault of their own. It's not because they haven't paid the rent, it's not because they've been a bad tenant, it's just because the landlord wants to take the property back, often because they want to re-rent it at a higher rent. So if we had different regulation around the private rented sector, that would make a really big difference, and that needs national government action in order to do that. And then there are other things that the government can do around making sure we have proper benefit levels, making sure we have a well-resourced mental health and drug and alcohol service, and making sure that all the support that people need to maintain their accommodation is there and is properly funded. So there is a lot of things that need to happen to make the change, but we believe those things could happen and need to happen because we're a rich country and there's no need for anyone to be on the streets.
I'm back again, hi. The activities I do currently are Monday, which is called creative writing, but that's slightly not quite right title for it, in my opinion, because although you do the writing creatively, we then set it to a very basic beats like clap, clap, click, clap, clap, click, clap, clap, and it goes around the room and around so that everyone gets a turn to clap, clap, click. And then once we've written the words that we want to write based on the question asked that day, which today is what changes are happening in the world, and that could be anything from the changes that the government are making, or the changes in the season, the changes in your clothes, the changes in the food you eat, and everyone writes a little bit. That's then recorded by the creative writing to the clap, clap, beat, clap, clap, beat. And it sounds amazing, and people, you can see people going, wow, that's so amazing. It's so popular, and that's one thing I better shut up because I've got another thing to do. So on Wednesdays I do canvas painting because it's so soothing. It's slight music in the background. The brush strokes are long, slow. For me, long, slow, little dots of life coming out into what ends up being a painting. There's soft murmurings in the class. People just almost talk to the painting. I do it. Oh yeah, you need a little bit there, and you need a little bit there. It's quite amazing. There's other things that are on. Tuesdays is job club. I don't do that. Thursdays there's a skill session, and Friday there's drama, which I don't do any of those, so I can't comment on them. But I did do one of the things that we are not allowed to do anymore, which is the gardening, and I did really enjoy that. I do my own gardening at home as well, so it's a shame, but at least I'm very lucky in that I've got somewhere to do gardening, but that's sorely missed. And the range of options is wide enough to accommodate most people's interests. Great. What can I say? Thanks.
There are a lot of people that say, why are you offering all these activities when you should be helping them with the problems? But what you need to understand is through the activities, they actually gain some confidence, some self-esteem. Like we had one person who used to come to the centre, did the activities, but he's very quiet. He used to keep him to himself, and because he's attending regularly, he's able to now speak in front of a large group. He's moved into accommodation, he's got a job. So we believe at the Booth Centre that through these activities you can actually reach a new chapter in life.